The Xenomorph, a terrifying extraterrestrial species introduced in Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien, has captivated audiences for decades with its grotesque beauty, adaptability, and deadly efficiency. One of the more overlooked but fascinating aspects of the Xenomorph mythos is the evolution of the weapons used against them and, equally important, the evolution of the Xenomorphs themselves as weapons. While the creatures are not traditional tools of war, their biological function, aggressive intelligence, and method of reproduction have turned them into a near-perfect killing species, making them both targets and weapons in the eyes of different human factions across the expansive Alien franchise. In the earliest stages of the Xenomorph's cinematic introduction, human technology was relatively primitive when facing this otherworldly horror. The crew of the Nostromo, mostly composed of engineers and commercial space workers, had little more than flamethrowers and makeshift tools to defend themselves against the Xenomorph that had stowed away in their ship. The tools were not weapons in the traditional sense. Flamethrowers, netting, and industrial machinery like airlocks were used in desperate measures, not in prepared defense. This marked the beginning of humanity's learning curve in developing weapons and strategies to combat an enemy that operated with terrifying efficiency and unpredictability. By the time Aliens 1986, directed by James Cameron, arrived, the game had changed. Humanity had militarized outer space and introduced the colonial Marines, a force equipped with futuristic weaponry explicitly designed to suppress extraterrestrial threats. The M41A pulse rifle became an iconic symbol of human resistance. It was lightweight, automatic, and boasted an underbarrel grenade launcher. This weapon, alongside the M56 smart gun, flamethrowers, and sentry turrets, represented humanity's growing understanding that brute force and tactical weaponry were necessary for survival. These weapons offered greater range, more firepower, and improved adaptability, but even with this superior firepower, the Marines and aliens were largely overwhelmed. The Xenomorphs adapted to environmental conditions, used stealth in numbers, and exploited weaknesses in human formations and technology. The Battle of Hadley's Hope demonstrated that even advanced firepower might not be enough when faced with creatures that knew no fear, felt no pain, and operated with hive intelligence. What became evident was that the Xenomorphs were not just creatures to be hunted or eliminated. They became weapons themselves in the eyes of various human corporations and Black Ops divisions. Weyland-Yutani, the omnipresent corporation in the alien universe, sought to weaponize the Xenomorphs for use in biowarfare. This marked a sinister evolution in the concept of weaponry. Rather than inventing new guns or drones, humans now sought to harness a living organism as a weapon of mass destruction. This twisted fascination often ended in disaster. Whether it was attempting to transport live specimens or create controlled breeding environments, every effort ended with the Xenomorphs escaping and wreaking havoc. Yet the attempts didn't cease, which showed the seductive appeal of using the ultimate predator as a strategic asset. In Alien 3, weaponry regressed again due to the setting. A penal colony with limited technological resources meant that traditional weapons were unavailable. The prisoners were forced to trap and lure the Xenomorph with fire and industrial tools. This shift highlighted how weaponry was not always about advancement but adaptation. The setting dictated the tools, and humans had to innovate using limited means. This also gave audiences a reminder of how powerless humanity remained against the biological superiority of the Xenomorphs. Their acidic blood rendered most close combat weapons useless. Their speed and agility made projectile weapons difficult to use effectively. Their cunning ensured that traps and conventional tactics often failed. Alien Resurrection brought about another shift in weaponry. Genetic engineering had become part of the human arsenal. Scientists aboard the USM Auriga used cloning and gene splicing to recreate both Ripley and the Xenomorphs. Here, weapons had evolved beyond physical constructs into biological experimentation. This new Ripley possessed Xenomorph DNA, making her both a threat and a bridge between species. The hybridization of human and Xenomorph genes implied an evolution of the weapon not just in physical form, but in genetic composition. It posed questions about ethics, identity, and the consequences of pushing science beyond its moral boundaries. Weapons were no longer just tools, they became entities with identity and agency. One cannot discuss xenomorph weapons without mentioning the crossover universe of Alien vs. Predator. While not considered canon by purists, these films introduced a cultural juxtaposition between the Predator's ancient hunting rituals and humanity's modern weapons. The Predators used melee and plasma-based weaponry designed specifically for xenomorph combat. Their wrist blades, shoulder-mounted plasma casters, and combi sticks were all crafted for efficiency and honor-based warfare. These weapons stood in contrast to the often panicked and overwhelming tactics of human fighters. The Predator's ability to kill xenomorphs one-on-one emphasized that weapons, when purpose-built and wielded with expertise, could level the playing field. In these films, the idea of the xenomorph as a rite of passage for warriors became another layer in the weaponized mythology surrounding them. The Predators bred xenomorphs for sport and honor, turning them into training tools and trophies rather than enemies. This ancient alien approach offered a more intimate evolution of weaponry, one rooted in legacy and tradition rather than pure destruction. As new installments and side stories in the Alien universe emerged, so did a wide array of new weapon types. Video games like Alien Isolation stripped the protagonist of military weaponry, focusing instead on stealth and evasion. The tools used in these settings, EMP mines, noisemakers, and flamethrowers, signaled a different kind of weapon evolution, psychological and tactical. The game forced players to rethink their approach. The xenomorph could not be killed, it could only be avoided. Thus, the very concept of a weapon became broader, incorporating distraction and environmental manipulation. This design choice reflected a more realistic portrayal of how humans might react when confronted with an apex predator that cannot be killed by conventional means. In expanded universe novels and comics, human weapons evolve even further, incorporating synthetic soldiers, advanced AI, and viral warfare. Some factions attempted to design viruses that could kill or paralyze xenomorphs. Others used mind-controlled xenomorphs as expendable weapons, sent into battlefields to cause chaos. These developments blurred the lines between weapon, operator, and victim. It became evident that as humanity grew more desperate to control or eliminate the xenomorph threat, their weapons became more complex, morally ambiguous, and self-destructive. Time and again, those who sought to tame or manipulate the xenomorphs ended up destroyed by them. At the heart of all this weapon evolution is a central theme: the futility of mastering a force of nature. The xenomorphs are not just creatures, they represent entropy, the breakdown of systems, and the failure of human control. Every technological advance, from pulse rifles to synthetic androids, ultimately fails because the xenomorphs adapt or exploit weaknesses. Their life cycle, involving facehuggers, chestbursters, and hive queens, ensures rapid reproduction and environmental domination. Their genetic memory allows them to absorb traits from their hosts, evolving based on the species they infect. This adaptability makes them a living, breathing form of weapon evolution. They do not require upgrades or manufacturing. Their evolution is natural, constant, and unstoppable. Moreover, the use of xenomorphs as weapons brings humanity face to face with its darker impulses. The desire to control, weaponize, and profit from these creatures mirrors real-world critiques of biological warfare, corporate greed, and ethical oversight. Weyland-Yutani's repeated failures are not just plot devices, they're moral warnings. When a species is created for the sole purpose of domination and survival, turning it into a tool only ensures mutual destruction. Recent developments in the Alien franchise, such as the prequel films Prometheus and Alien Covenant, introduced the idea that the xenomorphs were engineered, at least partially, by another species, the engineers. This revelation added a mythological depth to their existence. The xenomorphs were not accidents, but designed as weapons by ancient beings seeking to cleanse or punish. David, the synthetic android from Covenant, took up that mantle and continued their evolution, experimenting with genetics and striving to perfect the ultimate creature. In doing so, David became a metaphor for humanity's hubris, using scientific tools to forge biological weapons beyond our understanding or control. His actions reflected how the evolution of weapons is not just technological but philosophical. It raised questions about creation, destruction, and the fine line between innovation and annihilation. Today, the idea of xenomorph weaponry is not limited to physical confrontations. It encompasses ethics, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and psychological warfare. The franchise has moved from flamethrowers to philosophical inquiries, from bullets to bioengineering. The xenomorphs themselves are no longer just prey or predators. They are a mirror reflecting humanity's ever-shifting approach to conflict and control. The weapons we use against them reveal more about us than about them. Each stage of evolution in both the xenomorphs and the tools used against them serves as a chapter in a larger narrative about survival, fear, and the cost of playing God. Whether through brute force or genetic manipulation, humanity's effort to defeat or control the xenomorphs continues to evolve. Yet, the outcome remains consistently bleak. The evolution of xenomorph weapons tells a story not of progress, but of repetition. Every new advancement in weaponry is met with an equal, often superior, adaptation by the creatures. This evolutionary arms race underscores the futility of dominance in the face of nature's most efficient predator. In the end, the xenomorphs remain undefeated, not because they are indestructible, but because our very desire to destroy or control them only ensures their continued existence. The evolution of xenomorph weapons is, ultimately, the evolution of human failure.